These are the LeBron 23, and they are actually a pretty messy shoe. Let's find out why. Early in the hype cycle for the LeBron 23, I was incredibly excited for this shoe, more so because of what it promised to the buyers. What you had was a drop-in midsole for the first time since the LeBron 11, and that drop-in midsole had ZoomX foam in there. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a big fan, a big proponent of ZoomX and Pebax-based midsoles in general. But ZoomX making its debut on the LeBron shoe was something I was incredibly excited for. You had a massive carbon fiber shank plate that I was excited for. And then in general, the upper of the shoe, the actual exterior, the shell of the shoe looked really, really cool with that engineered mesh upper. And then what looked to be armor posit, which is what we saw on the LeBron 11. But that quickly fell apart once I got my foot in the shoe, and that facade kind of wore away. The smoke and mirrors really did a number on me, and I started to realize what this shoe was. But rather than getting to the bad of the shoe right now, let's talk about the good first, and then talk about how the shoe kind of falls apart when you actually play in them and wear them. So let's start with probably what I was most excited for on this shoe, which was the cushioning. We have a drop-in midsole making its return for the first time since the LeBron 11, and this drop-in midsole features ZoomX. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know I am a big fan, a big proponent of ZoomX and Pebax-based foams because of how bouncy they are and how much energy they return to the actual user, the wearer. In this case, you do have ZoomX midsole or ZoomX foam in the midsole all the way through, and then you have this like carrier foam, and I have to assume it's some type of Cushlon. I have to assume, again, either Cushlon 2.0 or 3.0. They've been using 3.0 for a lot of the higher tier shoes recently. But basically, there's ZoomX in the middle. You have like what I would assume is a Cushlon 3.0 carrier, and again, you have that massive carbon fiber shank plate in the midfoot for torsion support and things like that. In my experiences, what I really found out was that Cushlon 3.0 or Cushlon foam carrier really muted the ZoomX foam. ZoomX foam is very bouncy and very responsive. In this shoe, it was very, very muted. It was unnoticeable, and that's not something that is characteristic of that type of foam. So underfoot, you're not going to really notice it. Even in the heel area where the foam is a little bit thicker, you're still not going to feel that bounce that you expect from ZoomX. And in the forefoot, it kind of just cushions your landing and cushions the impact on your feet, but other than that, you're not really getting a whole lot of responsiveness from that foam. The other aspect of the shoe that was very, very good was the actual traction itself. The traction is a wavy herringbone pattern in the form of a 23 on that outsole, obviously to denote the fact that this is the 23rd shoe and the fact that it is LeBron's number 23. So it did do a pretty good job. It gripped the floor really well, had a little bit of bite. It wasn't necessarily sticky or anything like that, but it did a serviceable job of keeping my foot firmly planted on the floor and giving me the confidence to make those cuts and things like that. Now, surprisingly, that is just about it for the positives of the LeBron 23. I'm going to get into the negatives and where the shoe kind of really falls apart, starting with the fit. The fit was just not good. I know that Nightwing and Wear Testers talked about the last of Nike shoes recently. I will say that immediately getting this shoe on foot, it fit a little bit loose. I went with my true size 12, and the shoe just didn't fit quite right. Once I actually cinched the laces a little bit just to keep my foot in the shoe, I played in them and they stretched out a little bit, became a little bit more conformed to my feet. I tied the shoes a little bit tighter, but still had a lot of heel slip. My foot was just kind of like swimming in the shoe, but beyond that, there's like pieces in the midsole in this drop-in. I don't know if it's the carbon fiber shank or just the overall fit of the shoe, but there was pieces that was sticking into or digging into my heel and into the lateral side of my pinky toe area. And it just didn't feel good. And this was something I felt from the very beginning. I did play in them. Eventually my foot became accustomed to it, but it was just something that felt incredibly unnatural. The fit was just not good whatsoever on the LeBron 23. Another aspect that just wasn't great about the LeBron 23 was the materials of the shoe. The materials really represent a lot of compromise in my opinion, and what I mean by that is the whole marketing and presentation of the shoe, the packaging, is where a lot of the focus is, and that's where it seems like a lot of the marketing budget went. You have a lot of as I said earlier, smoke and mirrors. A lot of things that kind of make the whole package very, very nice. But then when you get to the nitty-gritty, the shoe itself, you realize that instead of using armor posit like they use on the LeBron 11, they just use like some type of like cheap plastic material. I don't even know what it is, maybe a TPU or something like that, but it isn't foam posit material. And so it creases very easily. It doesn't feel very strong, so it's not there for containment. At least it doesn't feel like it's there for containment. I think the containment is really happening with that lateral side outrigger to keep your foot on the footbed, but it just feels cheap. There are some hits of nice leather, like on the tongue area, but other than that, the shoe just feels compromised. And I felt like if they spent less on the packaging and, you know, not making such a big deal, that hardbound cover book, the metal charms that are in the book or in the package as well, they could have just spent the money on upgrading the materials and using the same type of cushioning and things like that. Obviously, they spent a lot of time, money, and research on this drop-in, but the shell of the shoe really fails the cushioning system. And that's probably the most disappointing thing about the LeBron 23 is that there was so much potential, and it's just a big letdown in my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to my recommendation for the LeBron 23, I cannot recommend this shoe at all to anyone for any reason other than collecting. If you need to complete your LeBron collection, by all means, get the shoe. $210 US is quite a bit of money for a shoe that you don't intend to play in or anything like that. But then again, a lot of Jordans go for that kind of price point today. But the LeBron 23, I can't imagine he plays in this shoe as is. And I know that athletes always use custom orthotics, custom drop-ins and things like that, but I don't know, or I don't think, and I would be willing to bet that he's not going to wear these shoes as they are. But this shoe, the way it's put together, is just not good. And I'm going to be honest, the last time I saw a shoe this bad was the LeBron 11, where it did feature fantastic cushioning, but the shoe just wasn't really done very well. And LeBron himself didn't play in that shoe. So it was one of the first times I saw a signature athlete not play in their own shoe. He actually played in his takedown model, and I believe it was the LeBron Soldier 11 or something like that. And he chose to play in that shoe instead rather than the LeBron 11 just because of how bad that fit was. I played in that shoe and it wasn't a great fit, but the cushioning was fantastic, so I did take that drop in and put it in my other shoes. But the LeBron 23 is just not a good shoe. It doesn't fit well. The cushioning, for as great as Zoom X is pretty muted and neutered in this shoe. The traction is okay, but at a $210 price point, I think you could do much, much better with a shoe that kind of keeps things as simple as possible. But if there's anything I missed or anything you would like to know about the LeBron 23, please leave a comment. If you liked this video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. But if you really, really liked it, please hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend that might be into this type of content. Thank you all for watching, and you have a great day.